How do I make my own bone broth? Okay, I want to try and save money by making my own bone broth. I saved a big freezer bag of chicken wing bones and also bought a bag of raw beef marrow bones. I heard I can even use them more than once. Can I just pressure cook these in water and apple cider vinegar, or do I need to do any prep work? I've seen a lot of people boil or roast them first, but I'm not clear why for cooked bones. Is it important they be grass-fed animal bones? If I add stuff like lemon, radish, onions, celery, carrot, do I count those carbs?
So it can be, bone broth can be as easy or as hard as you make it. So number one, I love using the Insta Pot for bone broth because when we do like a 12-hour slow cook, we'll do it overnight, and we just don't love the way the house smells.
Yeah, it kind of gets too much.
Overpowering. So then I find myself avoiding making it, but making it in the Instapot is my new favorite way. So you do about 8 cups of water and 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar or an acid. So you can use like vinegar or lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, whatever you have around is fine. The vinegar is what pulls the collagen out of the bones, which is what makes bone broth is the extra collagen. So, you strain out your flavoring agents. So whatever you're putting in there, you don't need to include those in the carb counts. Now, they may release a little bit, but not enough to be a big deal because you're going to strain those out and get rid of them. Why roasting? Roasting is going to intensify the flavor of the broth. I've made it both ways. It depends on my time, but if I have enough time, I will absolutely roast them because it just builds this depth or layer of flavor into it that we just find more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Every time I roast it, he goes, "This is a really good batch."
Yeah, it's way better roasted.
Yeah, and so some of my favorite flavoring agents, usually just anything I have in the refrigerator that needs used up. So usually like celery, some onion. I usually will throw in some peppercorns and if I don't have fresh garlic to throw in, I'll throw in some dried garlic flakes that I have from Penzeys, like a big thing of dried garlic flakes for when we don't have any on hand. And I usually throw in a few bay leaves, just because that's something Mom taught me to do. So Mom, you're listening. So it does seem to add more flavor. So I cook it for 2 hours on high pressure in the Instapot, and then I let it just naturally release. So I don't release the pressure. I just leave it sit for 30 to 45 minutes. Usually I forget about it, so it ends up being more like 45 minutes because I get busy doing something else. And then I strain everything out and allow it to cool enough to handle it, and then I'll actually put it in some silicone ice cube trays we have.
Yeah, I love those ice cube trays.
And I'll freeze it because when I make it and I just stick it in the fridge, sometimes we forget about it and then it gets questionable. So I like to just use ice cube trays, freeze them, and then put them into baggies. Break them out of the ice cube trays the next day and put them into Ziploc bags, and then just use a Sharpie and write a date on them. Yeah,
we have a lot of stuff that like migrates towards the back of the fridge because of kids and stuff, and we lose things because of that.
Yeah, so the date, like Sharpie date on the bag is important for us anyhow, because otherwise we don't know. Great question. But bone broth is a great thing to experiment with. It's so easy. And, is grass-fed required? Not really. I tend to, save my grass-fed bones to make, if I don't want to deal with it now, I'll even throw the bones in a Ziploc and shove them in the freezer, date it, shove them in the freezer so that, next time I have grass-fed bones, I can make a bigger batch.
And I would say, if you're using bones from meat you've eaten and not, went to the butcher and got bones specifically for making broth, you've already eaten the meat. You might as well make the broth.
Right. Yeah. So, great question.